Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so I want to jump right into a fascinating concept today. We usually just think of the rooms we live and work in as, neutral boxes, just four walls and a roof keeping the rain off while our brains do all the actual heavy lifting, right? Well, what if I told you your physical environment is acting like a silent instructor? The spaces around us are absolutely active forces, literally shaping the trajectory of our thoughts, the depth of our problem solving, and even our emotional states. In fact, do me a favor. Stop whatever you're doing for a second and just look up. Seriously, evaluate the ceiling in the room you're currently in. Is it towering way above you, or is it hovering just a few feet over your head? Because believe it or not, depending on exactly how far away that ceiling is, there are invisible psychological forces at play that are actively changing how your brain is processing information. Let's dig into exactly how and why this happens. Section 1. The Cathedral Effect Explained. The invisible force above you. So we're talking about a highly researched, scientifically validated framework here called the Cathedral Effect. It comes from environmental psychology, and it basically shows how the perceived height of a ceiling, or just the general vastness of a space, unconsciously shifts our cognition back and forth between abstract, creative thinking and really concrete, analytical problem solving. This concept was first brought to light back in the 1960s by a cultural anthropologist named Edward T. Hall. He and a bunch of psychologists after him realized that centuries ago, the architects of those massive Gothic cathedrals already intuitively understood this. They designed those towering interiors specifically to inspire awe, draw our eyes up heavenward, and detach the human mind from the mundane details of everyday life. And today, we've actually managed to quantify that exact sense of awe. But here is the real kicker. You don't actually need to be standing inside a massive, ancient cathedral to get this incredible cognitive shift. To put it into perspective, just 10 feet of vertical space is enough to prime your brain for freedom and possibility. There were these landmark studies back in 2007 out of Oxford University by researchers Joan Myers-Levy and Rougeau, and they gave this some serious scientific weight. They proved it's really the perception of ceiling height that does the trick. When a ceiling feels higher than 10 feet, our brains automatically break out of narrow constraints, which completely unlocks divergent thinking and abstract problem solving. Section 2. Evolution, Brains, and Space. From Savannas to Caves. So why on earth does our brain care so much about the amount of empty air above our heads? Well, it's not some learned cultural behavior. It's a hardwired survival instinct. Think about our ancient ancestors out on the open savanna. Out there, early humans had to stay vigilant over a massive scale, right? That required a broad, exploratory state of mind that was perfect for spotting patterns. But when they had to retreat and take cover in enclosed caves or thick brush, they didn't need broad vision anymore. They needed intense, hyper-focused attention on immediate specific details, like spotting a hidden predator or making sure they had a safe foothold. And the truly wild part is that modern fMRI scans show our brains still light up exactly the same way when we process modern architectural spaces today. And this brilliantly illustrates how those exact evolutionary traits translate straight into our daily cognition. High ceilings act as our modern savannas. They promote abstract thinking, divergent creativity, making big-picture relational connections, and just an overall feeling of liberty. On the flip side, low ceilings are our modern caves. They trigger concrete thinking, detail-oriented analysis, mechanical execution, and serious pragmatism. Your brain is quite literally using the physical boundaries of the room to dictate its own mental boundaries. I think this quote hits the nail on the head. The visual perspective of looking upward inherently mimics the feeling of standing in a grand open landscape. Just the mere physical act of tilting your chin up and looking upward broadens your cognitive aperture. It instantly strips away that subconscious heavy feeling of being contained. Section 3. Designing the Modern World. Architecture and Retail Manipulation. So how exactly is the modern world weaponizing this psychology? Because, they definitely are. Businesses and architects are actively using this against or for us every single day. It's kind of wild to see how simply dropping a ceiling immediately changes human behavior across offices, malls, and schools. Think about the workplace. Really smart corporate architects will build these massive atriums for strategic visioning and brainstorming sessions, but then they'll build low-ceiling, soundproofed nooks for deep-focused tasks like coding or legal analysis. It's the same thing in education. Towering historic libraries spark philosophical debate, while lower, cramped rooms are used for focused memorization and test-taking. And retail? Retailers use grand entrances to sell you the dream, but then shuffle you into tiny offices to finalize the paperwork. Let's actually walk through a mini narrative of that retail experience. Picture yourself buying a luxury car.
Step 1, you walk into the main showroom. The expansive ceilings bathe you in light, triggering awe and abstract thoughts. You aren't worrying about interest rates yet. You are thinking about prestige and the luxury lifestyle this car represents. Your brain is wide open. But then, you say you're ready to buy. Step 2, you're escorted into the back office. All of a sudden, the ceiling drops. This shift in environment is entirely intentional. That low ceiling forces a concrete, detail-oriented focus right onto the financial contract sitting in front of you. The dealership is literally using the Cathedral Effect to flip your brain from being a big-picture dreamer into a detail-oriented closer.
Section 4. Nature and Experiential Awe. The Original Cathedrals. Let's shift gears from the corporate world for a second and look at a more emotional register. How does this spatial psychology tie into our deep-seated human need for awe? Well, long before we were building massive structures out of stone and glass, nature provided our original cathedrals. Early naturalists figured out that environments like old-growth forests, like the majestic giant sequoia groves in California, act like these soaring, living ceilings, literally hundreds of feet up in the air. When you walk through those groves, the sheer vertical scale just totally overwhelms your perceptual framework. Nature provides the absolute ultimate mental reset, using those towering trees to forcibly pull our minds out of narrow analytical stress loops and dump us right back into holistic, expansive thought. And you know what the absolute best part of this is? Zero. That is exactly the architectural budget you need to experience this cognitive reset. Just stepping outside, immersing yourself in the vastness of nature or an open sky profoundly lowers your cortisol levels. It sparks creative breakthroughs simply by changing the perceived spatial volume around you. Section 5. Hacking your physical environment. Taking back control. Okay, but what if you're stuck inside at work right now, in a cramped, uninspiring room? Let's talk about some actionable ways you can manipulate your own spaces. Remember that Oxford study we discussed? Our brains respond to the perception of space, which means we can totally fake the cathedral effect. Here are some rapid-fire interior design hacks to visually expand your room. First, maximize natural light to push back the visual boundaries. Second, paint the walls with crisp whites or soft pastels to reflect light and create a really airy atmosphere. Third, implement vertical floor-to-ceiling shelving and tall plants to draw the eye upward. Fourth, hang large-scale art of vast open horizons and skies to act as a visual stand-in for high ceilings. And finally, if you absolutely cannot change your room, purposefully change your location when you need a cognitive shift. Go to a vaulted cafe for brainstorming and return to your desk when it's time for execution. Actually, if you want a really specific interior design trick to hack this, try the two-tone strategy. Say you're stuck in an office with a standard 8-foot drop tile ceiling. What you do is paint the bottom half of the wall a grounding dark color. Then you paint the top half and the ceiling a soft light color. This blurs the hard boundary between the wall and the ceiling, giving your subconscious the illusion of height and expansiveness, even in a small space. It is such a brilliant and inexpensive hack. But you know, the cathedral effect isn't just about physical architecture anymore. It is actively evolving into our digital workspaces and spatial computing environments. Think about really cluttered, text-heavy screen interfaces with complex menus. They act as a digital low ceiling, keeping you hyper-focused for mechanical data entry. But contrast that with minimalist virtual reality. VR designers are creating these vast digital canvases with endless white space. This acts as a digital high ceiling, priming users for holistic brainstorming and abstract ideation, even if their physical body is just sitting in a tiny cramped room. Which leaves us with this final truly provocative thought. As we transition from physical architecture to constructing the limitless worlds of virtual reality, how will the digital environments we design continue to dictate the boundless potential of the human mind? We are no longer limited by brick and mortar. The architects of tomorrow are virtual designers, and they literally hold the keys to our cognitive limits. So the next time you sit down to solve a complex problem or dream up a big idea, take a moment to evaluate your space, and whatever you do, don't forget to look up. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep exploring.